morning and welcome to Retirement Tax Matters. I'm Adam Reed. This is Garrett Crawford, our resident CFP. How are we doing this morning, Garrett?
Well, ready to do another episode, give the people what they want. I think they're all gathered, and we're here to deliver this morning, Adam, once again.
Wednesday morning, people all across the country, they chomp at the bit and wait for
I like to
the
imagine,
to be released.
as a kid, I was into the Batman shows. They're raising up the Retirement Tax Matters light. There's another issue that needs solving today, and we're here to bring it to the people.
Well, it's funny, here in a couple weeks, I'm going down to Texas to visit some family, and they live, I guess, in and around the Woodlands, and I think that's a spot that maybe we've heard from some people or talk. And I was telling Garrett, and he said, man, people may be stopping you in the street asking for photographs or autographs and stuff. And I said, I didn't think about that. I'll have to wear some dark sunglasses and a scarf down in Texas in the middle of June to hide my identity. So.
Garrett, I've dehydrated down in Texas. Please come help.
The scarf got to me. So, well, hey, I think today's topic is a really cool one because it's somewhat technical, but I think it's a kind of an easy one, and it's more so clearing up some misunderstanding and some maybe myths surrounding a topic that a lot of people in this $2 to $8 million space, I think it lands for them.
Yep.
Sometimes when people are below that threshold, they're, hey, this is our money, we're trying to spend through it. Sometimes above that threshold, things are getting a lot more complex with some of the tax issues and estate tax planning. But a lot of people in this $2 to $8 million space, I think what we're talking about today is going to be, oh, that's great. I'm glad I know that now, and now I'm ready to kind of execute moving forward. So, not to bury the lead or anything, but we're talking gifting this morning, and I think there's a lot of maybe misunderstanding and maybe even some fear around gifting. I think when we talk to clients, we may hear them say things like, "Oh, well, I'd love to give some money to my kids, but I just don't want to get torn up by taxes, or
tear my kids up with taxes."
Yeah, or if I gift to my kid, they're just I'm gonna want to put them in a hole, and so I think clearing up some misunderstandings today and maybe alleviating some of those fears to free people up to be. And everybody's wired differently, but I've heard more and more people talk about, hey, I want to be generous to my kids and my grandkids while I'm still here because I want to see them enjoy it. I want to see them, get the new roof put on their house or get into their first home or pay for their college. And I don't want to just leave them a big old wad of cash when I'm gone and they say, oh, thanks, Grandma, thanks, Grandpa, and then forget all about me. They want to see them enjoy it. So kind of give me a rundown. What does gifting look like? What are some things people need to be aware of as they're thinking about giving to the next generation while they're still here?
Yeah. I think a goal that I would have with this episode is that I'm having this conversation with clients all the time, and actually selfishly I was like, hey, if we record a podcast, maybe I can just forward this link to people and not go through the same thing over and over again. For my clients out there, we'll still talk about it, but
we're gonna get to the point where we've got an episode on everything and clients can say, hey, could you, and we're just gonna send episode 53, episode 104,
in a realistic way. That's really where we get a lot of these ideas. It's what conversations and what questions are clients asking us all the time that we just need to put out there and have a nuanced answer or targeted answer for people, retirees between 2 million and 8 million. And this is one of those that I think I feel like, people always say the tax code's complicated. This is one where I feel like the messaging has just been bad. And there are a lot of rules, and we won't get into everything. But I think for most of the people listening here, the landscape has changed whether you realize it or not. And so let's just start with this. July 4th, 2025, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act was passed. And this story even goes back further than that. And it talks about this gift tax limit, a state tax limit. I remember when I came into the industry in 2013, the numbers that we were using about when you would have to pay gift tax, it was somewhere between 5 and 6 million per person, which was a lot of, coming into the industry, I was like, man, people have $5 million. Wow, that must be 3 people here in Knoxville. But there are a lot of people that were subject to that. But what is drastically changed in the past 12 to 13 years is that federal estate and gift tax limit has shot through the roof. And I think it went back to the 2018 Tax Cut Jobs Act. But in 2026, you're allowed to give away $15 million per person. And so that means, Adam, if you're married if any of you all are married out there, you have like this $30 million exemption before any of these rules come in. And so I don't want to go too far down that route right now, but just know that 15 million and 30 million, that's significantly above who we're talking to today, that is between 2 million and 8 million. And so when I think about the niche, the people that would be listening to this podcast, not all 2 to 8 million are considered equal. So like you may have 8 million and you're 55, and that's where some of these like issues would become an issue. You may be 75 with 7 million, but you're planning on spending and giving all that away, and the idea of hitting 15 million probably isn't realistic. But the most, what I would call like the most misunderstood conversation that I'm having with retirees a lot is about this conversation. I want to give money to my kids, and people have told me I can give X amount of dollars per year and it won't cause any tax issues. And in the financial planning world and in the estate planning world, the tax planning world, we call that your annual gift tax exclusion amount, or annual gift exclusion amount. And that number in 2026 is $19,000 per person. So again, there's already some confusion here because there's this like $15 million number, and now we're back talking about this $19,000 number per person. And so the $19,000 is an amount that you can give away to anybody that you want to, and as long as that gift is below $19,000 in 2026, you really just like move on with your life and don't think about it again. If you give an amount above $19,000 to a kid or somebody else, a family friend, that doesn't mean the gift becomes taxable. Instead, it means the amount over $19,000 then subtracts from your $15 million lifetime gift exemption amount. And so let's say my name's Bob and I give my son $49,000. That is $20,000 above the $19,000 limit, and that means that for the rest of my life I can give away $14,990,000, whatever that is, 15 million minus $20,000. Almost everybody listening to this that's retired between 2 and 8 million, you're not going to give away more than $15 million. And if you're married, you're not going to give away $30 million. And so it boils down to, if you just want to forget everything I just said, the context, if you give a kid, if you give a friend more than $19,000, the only thing you really need to worry about is when you get to tax filing time is to remember and tell your tax preparer or tell TurboTax or whatever you're doing, remember to tell your tax preparer, hey, I gave somebody $25,000 this year. Can you take care of that on my taxes? And they'll say, yes, sure, no problem. And they'll add one extra tax form in your tax return called a Form 709. It's a gift tax return. And that accountant or that tax preparer is just going to say, oh, you gave $25,000. We're going to remove $6,000 from your $15 million banked limit. And you don't pay any more tax on that. So it's, again, if you're hearing this and you got $5 million and your plan is to spend through all that actually means you can, just with one extra form in your tax return, that's literally the implication here. You can give as much as you want, and we'll talk about that. Like maybe if you know it's not that big a deal, maybe you want to give more than $19,000.
And hopefully bring clarity here, not more confusion. But it's $19,000 per spouse per person, like per you're giving to. So I guess maybe for an example is like I have one brother. My parents are both still living, both married. So if they decided they wanted to give $38,000 to me and $38,000 to my brother, Mom, Dad, if you're watching, we'd love that. You can do more too, if you. But they can do that without any forms or anything. So I think that's why this rule gets so confusing, is because one person says, "Oh, you can give $19,000." Well, if you're married, it's actually $38,000. Well, if you have multiple kids, it's $38,000 per kid. So it just becomes one of those where there's a lot of different the flow chart just has a lot of different flows it can go to. But it's $19,000 per spouse from the family that's gifting, to each person they're gifting to.
Yeah, and so married couple giving to married kids, I think that's $76,000 you can give to them before it goes into that $15 million limit. So you can give away a lot of money, and I feel like this is one of those conversations. If you've got $12 million and you're single, okay, we need to start talking about, are you going to use all that? What's it going to grow to? If you're $6 million and you're planning on like spending, retaining principal, those things, you can probably give away a significant amount and not have an issue.
Yeah. And so it's one of those things. It's funny. Even as we talk about it, I'm like, wow, it's not confusing, but it is like, oh, well, if you hear your buddy talking about on the golf course, I can understand why there's some muddy water, some haziness around it. So, and feel free to throw down in the comments kind of your thoughts, your experiences, or hey, this is how I've done it in the past. It's always nice to hear from other people. So maybe another way or another important topic is where to give from. A lot of the people we're working with, they've got an IRA. Maybe they've got some Roth. Maybe they've got a joint account or a brokerage account, individual account. And then maybe they've got cash too, some savings, high yield savings. Where should they be giving those things? And kind of what's the most efficient way? Or are there any places it's like, oh my goodness, do not give from there?
Yeah. So again, I'm going to hover right back to the previous question and come answer this. A concern that a lot of people have is, am I going to get taxed? Are my kids going to get taxed if I give them $19,000 or if I give them $25,000? And the answer is your kids, if you're giving them cash, the IRS, I hesitate a little bit, but they don't really care as much about cash just because it's like an easy asset to value. People that are really running afoul on tax returns are trying to give assets where there's like subjective value and how do they escape taxation. Cash is like a really easy thing for the IRS to track. And so children that receive a gift from you, they're not going to be taxed on that. They don't have to report that on their tax return. But when we step into on the donor side, so for people that are watching, they ask, am I going to get taxed on that money that I give away? And the answer is no, you're not going to get taxed on it. But wherever you pull that money from to actually give the gift, you may end up getting taxed. So like if you've got $25,000 just sitting in cash and you want to give that to a kid, or maybe you've got $100,000 that you want to give to a kid, the most common thing right now we're seeing, houses are expensive. Parents are, they've seen their portfolios grow. They want to give them money for a down payment on their house. But if you've got cash in a checking account, it's like, you're not going to get taxed on that. Your kids aren't going to get taxed on that. That's just very simple. If it's a $100,000 gift, you need to report a Form 709 for the amount above $19,000 or $38,000, however you do it. But you will get taxed on that money that you're giving if you're pulling it from a taxable source. So let's say you've got a $4 million IRA and you're pulling out $100,000. It wouldn't matter if it was a gift or not. If you pull out $100,000 from the IRA, you're going to have to pay taxes on that IRA distribution, and your tax return is going to see that as additional income. But after you get the money out of the IRA, you don't get extra taxed because you're giving that to a kid. And so your question is like, hey, what's the best way to give assets or money to kids? And I would say like cash is the easiest. So you got money in the bank account, checking account, savings account. That's just like pretty straightforward. You write your kids a check, they get it, very easy. One asset I would say probably not the greatest, and especially depending on your age, would be like a highly appreciated security. You might have heard something about, donating or giving money to kids or charities through appreciated assets. You're going to have to sell that security. It's going to generate a tax, and then you're going to give those to kids. If you're, let's say you're 88 and you bought Apple way back in the day and it's, 10x'd its price and it's just, a lot of money, you might hold on to that until death so that the kids get a step up in basis. And so that one's just a little bit more complicated, but I generally say cash. And then let's say I think this is kind of an interesting one. Let's say somebody, Adam, kind of does what you say. Hey, mom wants to give a kid, son $19,000. Mom wants to give daughter-in-law $19,000, husband wants to give son $19,000, husband wants to give daughter-in-law another $19,000. Instead of just writing one big check from a joint bank account, it's usually better to split those checks up, and it kind of seems silly, but I think it's the cleanest way to do this. Refer to your tax person for final clarification. But it could be a joint account, but you'd want each spouse to sign that check for their portion of the gift if going through your $15 million limit is a big deal. If not, and you got $6 million, and that's never, who cares? It's like you're not going to go through the 15 or 30 million. So I'd say cash is generally the best way to give.
Well, I think it's a good time to kind of maybe pause the action and remind people too of the year-end tax planning checklist that we've got.
Good.
As you're sitting down and you're looking at, do I want to give from my checking account? Maybe we've got maybe we're actually in a really low tax bracket in our IRA, and we've got RMDs coming up, so we want to kind of thin it out anyway. Maybe it does make sense to give from an IRA or something. So, man, what a great resource for whether it's gifting, whether it's RMDs, Roth conversions, whatever you're looking at doing. And a lot of the people we talk to, a lot of the people in the comments, you're do-it-yourselfers. And so you don't necessarily want to come sit down with Garrett and I. That's perfectly fine. And so that's why we put together this year-end tax planning checklist for people like you to get more information, be educated, learn the nuances, learn kind of the hazy, muddy things, get some clarity on things as you're planning for the year. So head to the website, it's down the link below. Check out the year-end tax planning checklist. And it's crazy. You don't have to wait till the end of the year to do it. Honestly, most people should be doing it around this time and start making that projection, then dial it in towards the end of the year. But it's crazy this year's flying by. We're already almost to that point.
Yeah, they talk about the Continental divide as like the Rocky Mountain. I think that world history teacher in elementary school, hopefully I'm getting this right, but we're at that Continental divide part of the year where we go from proactive planning to we're beginning to start thinking about that fall execution already. So we're there.
Absolutely. So check that out. And then I think another thing that comes to mind, we took a week off from filming, so I'm kind of scattered. And we try to read all the comments and respond to people, and I think we've been doing a pretty good job of it. But somebody the other day said, hey, I never hear anything on state tax. Not a state, but states, the 50 that we live in, state taxes. And, the trick there is that we're trying to speak to a general audience. Everyone's dealing with the federal side of things. State taxes can be very nuanced, and there can be little things in one state that's very different than other states. And so we try not to get too into the weeds on that, but maybe give me a brief overview of how do state taxes affect gifting. And so hopefully that person has stumbled into this video again and says, oh, they heard me. I'm getting something about state taxes today. So
yeah, so let me start with, I think being transparent and honest is always best when it comes to being a planner. I think everybody should do this. But I love tax planning, and I figured out quite a few years ago that taxes are one of the biggest difference makers, I think, in like retiree success, peace of mind. I think great proactive tax planning is underutilized by people that are listening to this, retirees between 2 million and 8 million. And so that's why we're doing it. But it's been really interesting just as we've done this podcast and we've had people reach out from all over the country. Adam and I are here from East Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee. And the more that I do this and more that I talk to people across the country, don't hear this the wrong way, but I'm like, man, life is so much simpler when it comes to taxes in Tennessee when there's no state income tax. And so Adam and I are a little spoiled that with a lot of our existing legacy clients that we serve, a lot of them come from the state of Tennessee. And when we talk about Roth conversions and IRMA and just getting money tax efficiently out of accounts, we really don't have to think about state taxes at all. And so as I've interacted with people around the country, it's usually the people that are calling from really complicated state income tax states that are really trying to figure this out. And so the part I say transparently, what you'll see in different industries is that an attorney will be licensed in a specific state because state tax laws are so unique. I had a client just recently working with an attorney here in Knoxville, and there was an issue in Texas, and the attorney in Tennessee could not serve the person with their Texas issue, and so we had to find another attorney, bring it on because this attorney wasn't licensed in that state. And I think the great challenge, especially for all you YouTube listeners and people that are watching this, you're like, well, how come y'all never talk about state tax? And the answer is because it's really, really hard to know how every state operates and how, again, I love this, but I can't know every single state. And so we kind of have to pick and choose. And then there's some states where it's like, maybe a specialist would be really good here. But then it like becomes, well, I can't find a specialist. They're all investment driven. And so I think part of our grounds here is I think we're unique that we're willing to talk to people across state lines, and we're willing to dig into how the state income tax, a lot of times it feels really bad, but, it may not actually be the biggest ingredient in the baked good that we're making. It is a factor, but it's not the dominating factor. And you just kind of have to live. If you live in New York City, you got extra taxes at the state level, the city level, and at the federal level. And that Roth conversion for our clients that's at 37%, yours is going to hover more around the upper 40s just by the nature of where you live and the state tax restrictions regarding that. So long story short, bringing it back to this topic about gift tax, and I think in the little bit of reading that I did this morning on it, in most states, this still is not an issue. This whole like $19,000 that you're giving away to different clients, you're going to be able to do that at the state level too, where that is just not going to be a problem. Couple outlier states, the one that I came across was Connecticut. If you live in Connecticut, there is I think it's also matching the federal tax level. Talk to your Connecticut specialist, but I think even in this $2 to $8 million range, that's not going to be an issue. If you've got $12 million and you're 50, maybe if you're in Connecticut, there's going to be an issue there. I'd say ask more questions. But then to flip the conversation a little bit, if you're in one of these, like, I know Washington is one, Oregon might be one, New York might be another one, where you have kind of low estate and gift tax exemptions that are far below the $15 million federal. What I was reviewing and reading this morning is that the gift tax issue actually is a great way to insulate against that. If you're thinking about giving $100,000, it actually lowers your taxable estate so that those actually don't become subject to the lower state estate and gift tax levels. So actually giving away money can actually help in those situations, prevent a bigger state tax bill. But this is one where you want, if you're working with somebody, a financial planner that knows the big picture, but then they're also working in conjunction with the tax preparer. And so that's really our position when we're working with people. I don't really feel the requirement that I have to be a CPA in every state. I can't be all things to all people, but I am really good at the federal tax level, and I can ask good questions to a tax preparer. And I think that's really what people need if you're in the space, is a good financial planner that's willing to talk to the tax preparer about state taxes.
Yeah, absolutely. So if people are thinking, hey, I want to do this, I want to give some, but I'm also anxious maybe about, was this going to put us in a bind? Like, I want to give to my children. I don't want to just leave them a lot, but we know the psychology of people that are spending through their retirement is not always, it's not always the most logical thing. It's like we've had clients in the past that, man, you got plenty of money, but they're like terrified to retire because they just don't feel it. They don't feel like they do. So how do you help somebody mathematically kind of decide, where does this land? What does this look like? And then I guess last thing to maybe touch on is, does geographical location of family, does that affect giving at all? If you touch on those two things, I think we'll wrap it up for the day.
Yeah. So, the end of the episode, I mean, it's really kind of a commercial, I think, for what Adam and I do. And so I think, you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of DIY people out there that are kind of watching this and wanting to learn, and the lead magnet's a great place to start. At the same time, there's a lot of people out there that are actually looking for somebody to trust, to work with. And I think it's also very important, as much as we do this for educational content, we also do it in a way that we end up finding people that really resonate with the messaging that we're giving, that they want good tax planning. And Adam and I are financial planners. We're working with people. We bring on people. if you're interested in doing that, we have a website. It's called Book a Tax Review. Actually, I think it's Work With Us is how it's currently phrased. But there's a button at the top of Retirement Tax Matters where you can actually schedule a meeting and talk to Adam and I about becoming a client. And for some people, you got this down pat. You know that you can retire. You know how much money you've got left in the budget to give to kids and make all that happen. For a lot of other people, I'd say a majority of people, you've saved well, you have a lot of money accumulated, but you still have this uneasiness of, I'd love to give to my children, or I'd love to give to, charities or friends, but you don't really feel that freedom because you're not a pro at it. You don't sit around and think about, how do I build spreadsheets and how am I going to make this last and how do I do it tax efficiently? Sure, if you really pin me down, if I'm you're probably thinking, I got enough money, but let's hold off giving to the kids right now. If there's money left over at the end of our life, we'll transition some of it. And I think that strategy is totally fine. But I also think working with a financial planner, we kind of do two things. We do the annual tax planning, which I think is really important, which is like helping where your income is going to be at the end of the year, so that if you do give $100,000 out of your IRA, maybe that doesn't get taxed at 35% because you had no idea. That'll save you some money. But the other part is this whole thing that you just mentioned, Adam, about the psychology of spending, the rigors of financial planning software and making your estimates right. Like, I feel like that's something that we're really good at, is helping people know, yes, you can buy that boat that you've wanted, or yes, you can afford that house on the lake that you've really wanted. Or the other thing is, I know you'd love to upgrade. That would really strain your budget. And you can do what you want, but we would not recommend, like, being a good financial planner is being a truth teller.
It's always fun. I was just thinking of an example the other day, but you talked to a client of ours into buying an RV, and it was a nice RV. And then they came in for their annual review and they said, wow, I thought we bought an RV. We still have so much money. And we were like, yeah, you've got plenty. Like you've done the hard part of saving, and your portfolio is building, and compounding interest is doing a lot. So those are the fun conversations for us.
Yeah. So I think I would just tell people, one, a lot of people can do this themselves. Two, if you're thinking, hey, it'd be nice to, have somebody that would go all through this with me to help me, no, what can I do? What can I do? Admitting that you're not great at this. I think that's where our work really shines. And I think we can help you. So again, a very complicated topic, gift tax, and how much can we give, and taxes, a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding. It's actually, I would say, not that difficult for a majority of people, but how would you know unless you spend a lot of time, reading and learning and talking to people about it?
Yeah. So I think maybe to boil it all down, maybe to just land the plane here, each giver can give $19,000 to each recipient every year. If you go above that, simple form 709.
709.
And just let your tax preparer know, and they can put all that together for you. Or if you use TurboTax or something, it'll generate those forms if you let them know you made gifts this year. So,
and for Adam's mom and dad, he's open for business.
You guys know where to find me. And the grandkids, they love money too. But we appreciate you guys, tuning in today. Again, kind of like a hazy topic, but hopefully brought some clarity for you guys. So, hope you all have a great day today. My name's Adam Reed. It's Garrett Crawford. We're Retirement Tax Matters.
Thanks so much for listening to Retirement Tax Matters. As always, the ideas we share here are for educational purposes, and we do our best to get it right, but this isn't a substitute for specific tax or financial advice, because a truly effective strategy is always built around your personal situation. For more resources and to see our full disclosure, visit us at retirementtaxmatters.com.